I know so many of you guys right now can relate to this feeling. Everything was going so good. The worst. Okay, everybody, in this video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I will be walking you through as I attempt to build a vanity in one day. This is going to be an inset frameless vanity. The size is completely based off the top, which I'll show you here on the video screen. This is what this vanity is going to look like. It is going to have a total of 3 drawers, 2 of which are custom drawers because they do need to fit around a drain pipe for the vanity. We'll talk more about how I got all those measurements, but this is the overall design for this vanity and what I will be building today. Now, the first thing that I want to do to this sheet of plywood is make all of my rip cuts. Now, before I make any of my rip cuts, not cross-cutting anything, right? I'm making all of my rip cuts first for a very particular reason, is I want to trim off about 5 millimeters from the edge. I would much rather start off of a smooth surface to ensure, and a clean cut to ensure that everything is perfect from there. Here you see a factory edge. Here you see a clean cut edge. So just by looking at those two, which one would you want to base your measurements or apply edge banding to? All I have to do is set my parallel guides to 458, get these attached, and we'll be good to go. These are actually the brand new TSO parallel guides. I did a video on parallel guides years ago where I tested a lot of the big manufacturers and talked about why the TSO were my favorite because of all the features and everything. Well, they just released new ones. You can't even get the old ones anymore. And I just did a video on these last week. Definitely go check them out because if you were in the market for a set of parallel guides, this is the one for sure. And if you actually have the old parallel guides, I would strongly encourage you to get the updated stops, which you can get. So, what did I say? 458. So we're going to go to 458 and we're going to set that on this stop, which is a million times easier to read now because they changed the cursor. Put my stops down so they reference the material. Push this flat up against the surface and we are good to go. One thing that I do is I will mark my reference face in just a couple locations. And now I'm flipping this board over because that's what's going to rest up against the fence for my cross cuts. So I'm going to slide this up against my fence, slide this down. The fence that I use as of this year has actually been the TSO because they released one, and there's a couple of things that I prefer on it over the Bench Dogs UK one that I've used for years. One of them in particular being the stop, which I'll show here in just a minute, but that's not important just yet. So I'm going to bring down my rail, slide this back, and what I'm doing with this first cut, similar idea to what I did before. I'm just going to trim off the factory edge, maybe 5 millimeter or so, and then that will become my reference against the stop. And then the other thing that you obviously want to do is make sure that your rail is perfectly square to the fence, and that's where something like this, a very large square, which can be cut on a CNC machine with a piece of wood, or there's plenty of options that you can buy. Slide it up there. I see no light anywhere. I know that this is perfectly 90. Confident it's set that way every time. I've got to flip this entire thing over like this, keeping my marked edge up against the fence. If you've never noticed on a tape measure, you'll see dots if it has a metric portion of the tape measure. Matter of fact, I'll just show you on this. You should be able to see it, but there's a dot at 96, there's a dot. Well, those dots indicate every 32 millimeters. So it's that way for a reason. So if you've ever wondered what those dots are for, that is what the dots are for. So I said 672, so it's really easy for me to reference, right? 672. I'm gonna set my stop right there, set right in the middle, and now that becomes my reference to make my first cut. You want to avoid any tear out when it comes to crosscuts. Rip cuts is no problem. But crosscuts, depending on the blade that you're using and the setup that you have, you could get some splintering, and there might be a scenario where you don't want that. Sometimes it doesn't always matter. You may not always want it. The solution, make a shallow pass first, like this, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Now I go to my 3/4 of an inch depth, just beyond it, make my next pass. If I lift this up now, pull this out to the side, I have a much, much cleaner cut than I would had I not done that scoring pass. Once our first cut's complete, I can cut my other side. Now the next piece needs to be 870 wide. Slide this down, butt it up against my stop, and make my cut. One of the questions that I do get asked very often is what blades I prefer to use. And in just about every one of my saws, I have started using the Tenryu blades. I'll leave some links to those that I really like, but track saw, miter saw, I've just had really, really good success with those blades, and they do a really good job, especially when you're using, you know, higher end plywoods that you don't want to mess up the veneer really bad. The effect that I want to go for is I want to have the perfectly straight grain for the drawer fronts. But when you're building a vanity, one of the things to keep in mind, especially when it's a wide vanity, is you have to do something in the front to build that up to hold the weight of the vanity top. So what I'm doing is 2 laminated pieces of 3/4 inch material across the top. So it'll give me an 1.5 inch stretch all the way across. The height of it is going to be 75 millimeters tall, so roughly 3 inches. In order to avoid the grain going across on that piece, I want to make sure that the grain is vertical and matches the drawer front. These will be my drawer fronts and that top stretcher. I need to cut a 75 millimeter strip off the top. It is not to the 870 millimeter length yet. I'll do that afterwards with my crosscut setup. Because I want this to be the front and I want it to look absolutely perfect, I'm going to utilize the scoring blade to get a nice clean cut. And then also because they are going to be drawer fronts, I need them to look absolutely perfect because they will get edge banding put on them. If I flip this over, I have a absolutely perfect tear out free cut. So just to give you kind of an idea of what I'm going for, this will be the stretcher that goes across the front, and then the drawer fronts will stack beneath them and the grain will perfectly match into this. Here, I'm going to trim up one edge to make sure that I get it perfect. Now I have a nice clean reference. I'm going to flip this here, making sure that the top is still against the fence. Slide this up, put down my stop, butt it up against that. I could have used the slider. I could have used my miter saw. I could have measured it and cut it 15 different ways. But I could just utilize the exact same setup. I cut the other piece. That way I know it's going to be exactly the same. It's not off by a half a millimeter or a millimeter or two, or I'm marking and giving myself the chance to make another mistake. I just have the same setup. I just use that. And now if I take my bottom panel and I put this piece on there, it's absolutely perfectly flush, same exact size, because I use the exact same measurement that I already used. I found a scrap piece of 18 mil or 3/4 inch Baltic birch, and I'm going to cut this down to the 870 now, and then that way I can go over to my table saw, I can make my first cut at 75 to match the other piece, and then I set it to 100 to cut the rest of my nailers. After I've ripped, cross-cut everything, I like to apply my edge banding. The way that I like to apply edge banding is with my edge banding machine. It's the Festool Conturo. No, you don't have to do it this way. There are a million ways to do it, and I have multiple videos showing some of these other less expensive alternatives. But the biggest reason that I am using this machine is because I don't have pre-glued Rift-Sawn white oak edge banding, so I kind of have to do it. Or I would have to apply glue manually and then tape this on so it could dry in place. And I'm trying to do this in a day, so that's not going to happen. The next step is I'm going to pre-drill all of my holes for my drawer slides. This is not something that you have to do. It just makes installing drawers when you have multiple drawers a million times easier, and it gives you way more flexibility. The drawer slides that I'm using for this vanity, as usual, are the Progressa from Salice. I've done a video on these slides where I show the benefits of the rack and pinion system. This is an inset cabinet, so I definitely have to be aware of the length of the slide. I know that this is 15 inches, and that's how deep I can go, adding on the addition of the drawer front. So I've got my setup ready. I'm ready to punch the holes. The first hole that I'm punching is the hole from the front of the cabinet. Now, I already know the measurements for that all the time. For me, it's going to be 37. Even though this is an inset cabinet, it's going to be 37. The measurement I don't have is the back measurement. Where do you find the back measurement? In a catalog, right? Every brand has one. In this case, for me to put it in the spot that I want, it's 357 millimeters, so I'll be 357 millimeters away from the front edge. I can remove it, and here you see I've already got holes located. So I know 357 is my measurement. I've used a lot of different versions of something like this in the past, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make measurements referencing the edge. And these, I believe they're called Sword, yeah, from JessEm. But these rulers are fantastic because they have a little latch here where you can put that out and it rests perfectly on there, but it's not always there if you don't need it. And then I have increments. So this side's metric, this side here is imperial, which is great. So it has both. But I need to be 357. So here's 357. So I'm going to do a mark here, just one line. I'm going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to start off the edge. I'm going to go 357. I'm going to come this way. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have a jig to help me set my rail. And this is where I need to make sure that I line it up with, because this is 357 millimeters from the front, so I need the center of my hole to be along this line. If this is set up properly, if I was to put this on here and lock it into a pin, and I make a plunge on that line, it should be right there on the line, exactly where it needs to be. So just to give you an idea real quick of what I was talking about. So if I line this up on the holes that I had mentioned, we got our hole access here, hole access here. I make sure that my slide is exactly where I want it. And once I figure all that out, I can just drill additional holes later. Now it's time for me to do some layout for the joinery that I intend on using for this. I will be using the Lamello Clamex connectors mostly, only because I'm trying to get it done really quick and I want to clamp it together with a little bit of glue and continue to work on it. Because I'm using a hardware connection, I want to make sure that I don't put the Clamex connectors where I'm going to be putting my feet. I'm using these for the vanity. These are just some inexpensive metal legs. They're just a really nice look for something like this and for what we're trying to achieve. I've moved the camera to give you a better idea of exactly what it is that I'm looking for. So this is going to be the piece that goes into the bottom of the cabinet. So what I'm trying to make sure is that when I screw these two screws into the bottom of the cabinet, that they are not going to impede the use of these Clamex connectors, and they're not. So what that tells me is that I can take a measurement from the outside of my leg to the center of this hole, and that is my marking line for all of my measurements, and then I'll do one directly in the center of the panel. So there'll be one on the end and center, and I know that when I put it all together, when I go to screw in these legs, I'm not screwing into the Clamex connector because that would not be good. Next, I'm going to be laying out all of the locations for the connectors on my stretchers. Now I've got everything marked, I can cut all of my joinery, and then we can throw this thing together. So this is a cam mechanism. So as you tighten this, it's going to go into the opposing piece and bring the pieces really together. So really tightly together. It's essentially acting as a clamp while the glue dries. And I will be using glue for this. I know in a lot of other builds I typically don't. But I will be using glue, and because I'm using these. So one thing that's very nice about utilizing the TSO connectors, they have a little bit of play in them. So if you go to set them up and they don't line up perfectly like they should, you just whack it with a mallet. Well, now I get to do one of my favorite things, and that's assembling a carcass when using the Lamello. It's really great. So let's get to putting it together. I could have added some TSO connectors to pull this together, but I knew this wouldn't be visible, and like, why waste the connectors? So I'm gonna put some narrow crown staples in here. This will not be visible because this is gonna be the back bottom. So just gonna run some across the bottom here to pull that together. Yeah, I'm gonna install the legs now. That's the next step. Now to put these on, I'm just gonna take some scrap blocks with some double-sided tape. The only reason I'm doing this is this gives me a reference to where the exact corner is. I'll just pop them off and move on to the next one. And now the leg is nice and flush to the corner, and that will give a really nice finished look. Now in the back, one thing that I will do different, because I don't want, this is going to sit flush against the wall. I want to make sure that the legs do not sit flush against the wall, because this is high enough up to where I can actually put trim and set the legs in front of it. One thing that's really nice is once you get one installed, it just makes it so simple to install the next set, because I can get all of my spacing without any issues by simply just looking right here and counting how many visible holes there are in between each one. And now I can count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 visible holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Totally based off my drawers. I would adjust as needed depending on what drawers they are, or if I wanted to maximize space, whatever the case is. And now for the only reason that I'm actually able to get this project done in one day, and that is because I outsourced the drawers. These drawer boxes are from Eagle Woodworking, and I'll leave a link to their website down below. But basically, Eagle Woodworking is a company that specializes in making dovetail drawer boxes. They also make doors and drawer fronts. I wanted to have some nice drawer boxes, and I also knew that these were going to be specialty drawer boxes because they are for a vanity. For me to realistically get dovetail drawer boxes and make something custom like this, not only would it be fairly expensive because I'd have to buy all the materials, but it would take me a day just to make the drawer boxes. So now I take a project that I wanted to get done in one day, and now I'm stretching it out to 2 days, and then with finishing, even 3 days or longer. I think the mistake that a lot of people make when they get into woodworking early on is thinking that I'm a woodworker and I have to build everything. And that just is not the case. If I was to build this for a client, the amount of money that I would have charged if they wanted drawer boxes like this, it would be more expensive for the customer than if I was to just order them from a company and not have to worry about it at all. I got 3 boxes total. I got this 4-inch, which is a custom. As you can see, it has the cutout to allow for the drain. I got a 6-inch version of this, and then I got a 6-inch just standard drawer because it's below where the drain is going to be. The price on those 3 drawer boxes, dovetailed, finished, sent to my door, was $453. Now, if you're just talking about standard 4-inch drawer boxes, they're obviously much cheaper. The material that they use is 1/2 inch, in this case, 1/2 inch. They do have other options. Maple, not plywood, actual maple. Everything is dovetailed to include the cutout on the inside, as you can see right here. And it is already finished, and it is also already cut and bored for undermount drawer slides. Now, if you wanted to get side mount drawers and not have this, that's also an option. The only thing that I had to do is add my clips for my undermount drawer slides. So something that would have taken me basically an entire day, realistically, of dialing in whatever method I'm going to do for dovetails, making sure everything fits, doing the test cuts, because most woodworkers are not set up to do dovetails all the time. All I had to do was add some clips, install my drawer slides, and you're about to watch me put these things in. Super easy to order. You just go on the website, you fill out your dimensions, you select from an unbelievable amount of options, whether it's dividers, whether it's a custom drawer like this, you put in all your measurements, and the only thing extra that I had to do for the 2 drawers that I got that have this cutout is provide them a sketch that showed exactly where this cutout fell, and then they do everything from there. So really easy. Really good quality. Everything got shipped to me in less than 2 weeks. I think their standard turnaround time for depending on the size of your project, maybe 2 weeks or so. But I already had this designed. I sent them everything. I got the drawer boxes, and then I started on the vanity. So I would certainly recommend checking them out, and I think you'd be surprised to find out the cost associated with doing something like this and the amount of time that it will save you. And let me know down in the comments, because I actually have an entire video planned where I want to do a cost analysis and breakdown of building something like this yourself, or just building standard and expensive doors, and kind of where all that falls. So if that's something you'd be interested in, definitely let me know down in the comments section. I would highly recommend Eagle Woodworking. A lot of people that I really respect in the industry that do very, very amazing work, high-end kitchens, beautiful furniture. This is the company that they use, and if they're using it 100%, I'm totally fine with using it. Now, the only thing is to make sure that all of these fit and all of my measurements were correct, and that I built the cabinet to the specs that I wanted. So this is going to be the moment of truth. Okay, let's start on the bottom. I'm telling you, this has to fit. They've got a really great tool on the website that, so far so good, that allows you to really just take your opening and subtract whatever, depending on what kind of drawer boxes you're going to get made. But we're good to go. Good to go. And that one is not clipping in. Let's find out why. Well, I know why it's not going in properly, and that's because typically I do overlay, and when I installed this last slide, I actually just naturally did it in the hole for overlay. But that one I didn't, and this was the last slide that I did, so you'll probably see it when I install the drawer slides that it was much closer to the edge, and now I know. So I need to remove that, slide it back 2 holes, and now I actually have it right. And now we are good to go, and I can readjust thinking that it was the drawer box itself, and it was not. It was my silly error. Let's do some drawer fronts, shall we? So this is what I need in order to get my drawer fronts exactly the way that I want it. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut my sheet that I'm using to be 864 millimeters wide, and then I'm gonna add my edge banding to make it 866. Then I'm gonna cut my strips. I'll explain more on why I do it that way once I get to that step. All I'm doing right here is I'm lining it up with the opening on one side so it's perfectly straight. And there's a couple of things that I'm checking for right now. One, I'm checking to make sure that that grain match is as close to being accurate as possible. The other thing that I'm looking for is what this gap over here is, because this should be a 6 millimeter gap, and we are at just over 6 mil. That's because I don't have this set up just right. Yep. It should be good. These are going to be drawers that you're looking down on. Once I edge band the sides, I not only can get really clean cuts at the table saw when I cut them, but I don't have to try to put edge banding on small individual pieces. So I'll do the long pieces twice, cut them all down, and then do the top and bottom of each drawer front. And when you're looking down, you won't see any seams on the corners. I'm sure you can probably figure out what just happened. I wish I could say that this is the first time that that's happened. It's not. If you just barely catch that, oh man, I am just so irritated right now. So irritated, because the piece is worthless. So here you can see what just happened. It's funny because it just barely grabbed it here, but because it's spinning the opposite direction, it actually started to pull it back. I mean, the piece it's trashed. Like, I can't use it. It'll be completely visible. And the problem is this is already cut to the perfect width. So what do you do in an instance like that? So here's the issue that I have now. No matter what I do, it will not be as close of a match to the top rail because I cut the top rail off of that individual piece and then everything flowed. However, I do believe, yeah, so I still have more here. This is the same exact piece. The problem is now, it'll be really, really close to being the same. It's the same tone, it's the same pieces. I know so many of you guys right now can relate to this feeling. Everything was going so good. The worst. All right, back to work. Dang it. I mean, the color match is perfect because it is from the same piece, but oh boy, that stings so bad. It's not gonna be it's as close as the last one, I suppose. I'm gonna edge band the sides of this again and then go cut my drawer fronts without, destroying it. I did it. I didn't screw it up. I could be done now. So I'm gonna get these edge banded. Once I do, we can get them put on the vanity. And then we'll have the real moment of truth, which is finally bringing the vanity top out here and making sure that it fits, which I probably should have done before I went to all the trouble of the drawer fronts. But I've got so much confidence that it's gonna be perfect. And I mean, why would I think any otherwise? It's not like I ever make any mistakes. There's a lot of methods that you can go about doing this. I actually prefer using double-sided tape in most cases, especially when it's inset, just because you actually have a lot to push back against. Sometimes overlay, the sides of the cabinets can kind of impede it. Let's just go with a couple of pieces out towards the sides, because really all we're trying to do is get them in place and make sure that they hold to where I would be able to pull them out and attach them from the back side, which I'll do as we go. Or actually, I'll probably do it at the end. And there we go. And here I'm looking more to ensure that I'm even with the drawer beneath it. Perfect. All right, and I'm gonna leave those spacers there because I don't want any sagging. And now we just do the last one. I need to create a cabinetry course. If you think a cabinetry course, if you're still watching this video at this point and you think that me developing a course on cabinetry, which would be far more in-depth than this, let me know in the comment section. Please, let me know. Because if I have enough interest, then I'll be doing that next year. Just got the reveals so well done that it's perfect. It is perfect. Now for these, I'll put 2 screws in line with each other on each end. Very important to make sure that you have that clamping element there to stop the wood from pushing out. Because when it pushes out, then it'll not sit flush and you'll get protrusion and everything else. And you just don't want that. I'm not gonna worry about the middle because whatever hardware I put on there will actually help with that. So this is the point that I would make any minor adjustments that need to be made. But honestly, I'm pretty dang happy with how this came out because everything is flush to the sides. All of my reveals look pretty much the same. It's pretty good. Now I need to go get the top and make sure that it fits. I really hope that it fits. All right, this is the moment of truth. See if all my hard work paid off. Well, it appears to fit. So luckily, it did fit. We ordered the top off of Wayfair. We just really like the style. I wouldn't say that the quality is really all that great because you can tell in the manufacturing that there are definitely deviations. And what I mean by that is this is overhanging about 1/8 of an inch here. It's overhanging about 1/16 of an inch here. All across here, it's pretty much flush. But right here, the whole mold actually dips in a little bit. So if I wanted to get this flush to the edge right there, which was the original plan, you would end up seeing the top of the vanity. And there's no adjusting that. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But overall, I love it. I mean, it looks great. Again, it's a half bath vanity. It was something I was able to do in a day. And, you know, maybe like in 6 months, when I finally get around to remodeling that bathroom, I'll actually get this thing installed. So, yeah, be sure to be on the lookout for that video. Now, it's almost 5 o'clock and I need to go get my boys. Bye. If you've made it this far in the video, then I would like you to consider becoming a patron. Over on my Patreon, you'll have access to all kinds of things depending on what level you sign up at. To give you an example, this particular project actually has an 1.5 hour long uncut version where I go into a lot more detail on every little aspect of this build. By joining my Patreon community, you're gonna have access to various things depending on what level you sign up at. Some of those benefits include monthly group calls, early ad-free access to all of my YouTube videos, behind-the-scenes content and weekly updates, access to my Discord server where you can chat with other people in the community, and more direct priority access to me if you have questions. So if you've been getting value out of my videos and you wish that you had just a little bit more, then definitely consider going over to patreon.com/Fence Woodworking and sign up today. Thanks.